Welcome, welcome, welcome.
What's going on?
All right. We're
Special
not
guest today. It's Jason
special.
Richardson.
Jason Richardson in the house. In the house. Retro. Well, it's hard to believe it's retro. Hard to
Right, it
believe.
doesn't feel all that retro. Was he on the team that beat the Mavericks when they were an 8 seed and the Mavericks were a 1 seed? I think that's like
Maybe. I know he had some like legendary games, and I'm pretty sure he played for the Orlando Magic as well in the tail end of his career. But what about you? You're rocking your Man City gear. For those who
Yup.
don't know, he's a big fan. Nicholas, who you rocking?
This is 2000 circa 2014, so that the haters won't say that I'm bandwagoning.
That's important.
This is a 2014 Vincent Company shirt.
That's important.
Famous Manchester City Belgian defender, center back. Yeah, and now he coaches a Premier League team that often gets walloped by Man City. So it's come full circle for him.
Full circle. The circle has become full. The circle has become full. Hey, it's a big sports weekend. Like, it doesn't stop. I'm going to do a callback here, Nick. For those who are just joining us for the first time, we are a sports podcast that sort of intersects with food, gastronomy, and of course, all things sports. But one of the recommendations you made last week was regarding Formula U. We had a whole conversation on Formula One, and I do see its popularity growing in the US. I think a lot has to do with the fact that there's now consistent races in the season here in the US that people get excited about, that become such large events that people can participate in. And one of the things you suggested is to watch the documentary Drive to Survive on Netflix. And I have done that. I have become obsessed with Drive to Survive, the documentary on Netflix. Y'all need to watch it.
Definitely. I'm so glad you took the recommendation. Not many people actually do that. I think that Formula One fans, whenever you find one amongst your friends, your acquaintances, they'll let you know, and then you have that bond forever. We like come out of the woodwork, and then we are a passionate group.
And you know what's interesting? My brother had brought it up. I want to say months ago, like, oh, he's getting into more Formula One racing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. But it's happening. It's really growing in popularity. And Nick, consider yourself an evangelist. You have created a fan here. Now, full disclosure, it's a big weekend. Saudi Arabia, right? They're racing Saudi. Am I picking it right? Is that the right place? Is that the right locale?
They're actually qualifying right now. So if you see me looking down at any point during this podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm following the qualifying results for this weekend's Grand Prix.
How's it looking? Who's the fastest? Let me guess. Let me guess. Verstappen.
No,
Verstappen is the fastest.
it's still early stages. We're still in Q1. Uh,
Okay.
we've got Verstappen 2, Charles Leclerc 1, Fernando Alonso 3rd. There's still a couple minutes left in Q1. No Carlos Sainz in
Mm.
qualifying today.
Well, little shakeup today. Little
Yeah.
shakeup. Found out, and hopefully Carlos is okay, but I believe he had appendicitis, so they have to do the removal of the appendix. Something that, man, knock on wood, doesn't seem like a fun thing to happen, right? When it starts occurring, even though the surgery seems pretty routine. But you have a pretty young, especially in comparison to Sons, Oliver Behrman. Behrman? Oliver Behrman.
Yeah, I think he goes by Ollie, and the last name is similar. I have no idea.
He
Uh,
goes by Bear, Ollie Bear.
Ollie Bear. Yeah,
I feel like
that's
there
a
could be a
good
good
nickname.
like British pub song. Ollie, Ollie, Ollie Bear, Ollie, Ollie, Ollie Bear. Yeah, I don't know. Here we go.
I love it. I love it. Let's give it like Ted Lasso. But he has
Yeah.
a good chance to score points in his F1 debut. Um, it's obviously super exciting to score points in your F1 debut. And for those of you who don't know, you score points if you are in the top 10 in a race or a sprint. So if he lands in the top 10, which will be, he's got the car to do it. It'll be a challenge given I don't know if he's ever raced on this circuit before, but definitely not out of the realm of possibilities here. And yeah, excited for another race weekend.
Love it. Love it. More Formula One conversations to come in this podcast, because I think we are going to emerge as really a place to come and talk about it, especially from an American perspective, because I think there's definitely a lot of rich cultural European perspectives in Formula One, global perspectives as a whole. But I think we're still in a place where we can grow more voices and trying to get more eyeballs in this very exciting world of Formula One that constantly shifts and changes. The stakes are really high. So if you don't know anything about Formula One, highly encourage you to watch the documentary. It's going to make you a fan, right? Just getting that exposure of who's behind the helmet, right? Who's behind the visor in the race car. And I think it makes it so exciting. Interestingly, though, it's not the only, I got to put in a plug, it's not the only Netflix race documentary available. They also, this was the first season, I think 2023, it might be past, but basically following the 2023 NASCAR season, Netflix also launched Full Speed, which is their NASCAR equivalent documentary, similar to Formula One. And I must notice there's definitely, even though the wealth is still there, there's definitely a difference in sort of the culture of the race itself.
Yeah.
Formula One has very European tendencies with European sensibilities, and Full Speed NASCAR also just really, it's beautifully American, central in its capacity to embrace a lot of what is Americana. But before we just talk racing, I gotta bring up some crazy news, and I want to know your thoughts here, Nick. This just I think it happened yesterday, right? And it hit on the X universe of Jake Paul signing a contract to fight Mike Tyson. Now, the stats are, and just the age stats. I'm not going to give you the reach and the weight and all that stuff. We're not boxing pundits, but Jake Paul is 29 years old, with Mike Tyson currently 57. They'll be 29 and 57 by the time of the fight in July. What the heck is going on here?
I don't know how you feel about like being a 29-year-old wanting to fight somebody almost double your age. Not quite, but almost. It feels like something is wrong about this. I feel like Mike Tyson, legendary fighter, and he's in great shape, but things kind of go at a certain point. The speed, I just know that a 29-year-old against a 57-year-old, that seems like a recipe for disaster, but it's going to make for great television, great pay-per-view. What do you think? Who do you got? Paul?
Yeah. So just for context, right, you did have Logan Paul play Floyd Mayweather, but the age gap was much, I think, it was, I know it was significantly smaller. And of course, Logan did not win that fight. Mayweather is a real fighter. The Paul brothers are legit, but they're not contenders, right? They're not title contenders on a consistent basis. They're good fighters, but they're not title contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I don't know if the bias of, like, just being real with you, Nick, I don't know if there's an age gap between us, because my bias is that Jake's going to get his butt whooped. Like Mike Tyson, but it could be just memory, right? Mike Tyson, to me, is just a bad man. Like, he is just the epitome. And I remember when he was getting, because it's been a few years ago, but he did have another fight, I believe, a few years ago as well, Mike Tyson. So It's not like he's been completely out of the game. Yeah, bring up that fight, because I do remember watching a Joe Rogan podcast clip, and it was about, and now granted, this might have been quite a few years ago, because it was when he didn't have the big table that he has now, and he talks about it. but he interviewed Mike Tyson before that fight. And that was the sort of motivation for him to get a bigger table, because he recognized Mike Tyson was just so amped up during that interview. Like he was ready to go. Like, I just think there's a different instinct, right, that Mike Tyson lives with. And he's able to find the peace for most of his life. And he talks about it. You know, that's the thing. He's very transparent. He's an open book about finding peace. But when you switch on to the fighter, it's like it's all rage all the time. And so I think Jake and Logan, they approach these fights from a business standpoint. It brings eyeballs. It's gonna make money. There's no way this is interesting, weird, strange, but interesting. I think a lot of people are gonna like, this is good for Netflix. They're gonna be eyeballs on this just to see. Are you right, Nick? Is this a ridiculous thing to put on a 57-year-old, or are those who remember how bad Mike Tyson is this going to be a moment where we get to see Jake Paul, which, by the way, I think some people will be rooting for, right? To get his butt whooped, these because they represent the YouTube generation, right? Which, granted, we are on YouTube, but I don't know if we're really we're not going to be super popular unless
we're on YouTube for like 5 people.
Yeah, unless we start giving millions of dollars away like Mr. Beast, right? Like that's it. We're not. We're here because we love talking about this and we love our friendship. But so super interesting. I think there's going to be that divide. I think people agree with you, Nick, but I wonder if it's generational.
Could be, yeah. And just for some more stats behind the fight, Mike Tyson last had an exhibition fight against Roy Jones Jr., another former world champion, in 2020. So it's been obviously a good bit of time since that last like competitive fight. He hasn't fought in a sanctioned fight for 20 years. And I want to put a caveat on what I said about the potential like differences in athletic ability at the 2 different points in these gentlemen's lives. But I'm going to root for Mike Tyson as well. I want to see a little bit of, I just want to see a good fight and like actual, dare I say, violence, not just like some muted boxing, because like this is obviously a money-making opportunity for both of them. But I do want to see, as you were saying, Mike Tyson kind of put himself in that place where, you know, he is heavyweight champion of the world, former heavyweight champion of the world, you know, and Jake Paul, Logan Paul are YouTubers. Like I kind of want to see that, like the person who's dedicated their entire life, then there's their craft to do boxing. Not saying that Jake Paul don't boxing seriously, but it's not their claim to fame. So,
well, it's like the Liam Neeson's movies, Taken, right? He's an older dude, but he's whooping up on a lot of younger dudes just because of experience. Right now, granted, that's a movie, but I think Mike Tyson is that dude. So I am excited. That is great publicity. Like, this is a great thing, because boxing's kind of, you know, it's going into the forgotten world for a lot of folks in America. It used to be primetime television. A lot of people used to pay attention to the fights. Man, I'm thinking of the Oscar de la Hoyas and even more recently with Gano, but like it's kind of simmered down a bit, right? As far as you looking at these heavyweight boxers, or even just popular boxers in the same entertainment level. I think this is good transition, Nick. I think MMA has sort of taken that spotlight away from traditional boxing. And I think MMA fighters now are becoming more popular, like Mr. Rainbow Hair himself, Sean O'Malley. Hopefully he doesn't hear me saying that, because that's another bad dude I do not want to cross. But a different build than Mike Tyson. They got to fight this weekend, don't they?
Yeah. So he's in your area. He's in the Miami area. So be careful what you say.
That's true. He's Logan. He's here already. But mad respect for Sean O'Malley. rematch. And this is what's interesting is I feel like MMA is more consistent with their rematches. So people get to see, really good fights again against Chito Vera from Venezuela. I think that's a Venezuelan flag. Could be the Ecuadorian flag. So sorry for the Vera fans. Either or. So
Yeah, I'm not. I know we chatted about this when we were coming up with today's show about how I'm not the biggest MMA fan. And well, to start, my background in martial arts is not extensive, but I did Taekwondo. I actually have a black belt in Taekwondo, fun fact. And the stand-up sort of fighting style.
Wait. You have a black belt?
Yeah.
See, it's Ecuador, by the way. Chito, sorry, Chito. It wasn't Venezuela, it's Ecuador. This is what I'm talking about, folks. Nick is full of surprises. Okay. And I think part of our show, part of our shtick is going to be to unwrap some of those unique surprises of our friend Nicholas. Black belt. So don't let him fool you. Don't let the Clark Kent look fool you. There's more to uncover under this guy.
Just start blurting out random facts off the dome in the podcast. I killed a man once with my pinky.
Yeah.
Obviously I didn't.
Yeah. You got to disclose that.
That was a joke.
Disclose that.
But yeah, as a Taekwondo, I am a Taekwondo black belt. I guess that they don't take that away from you. Although I haven't done it in forever. Like I got this when I was a kid. But that's what my interest in martial arts kind of boils down to. Like stand up, like kickboxing, boxing, Taekwondo, hand-to-hand kind of combat like that. So I understand that when I'm watching an MMA fight. But then what the kicker for me is like when they get down on the mat and they start employing some wrestling moves, some jiu-jitsu.
Submissions,
Submissions. I'm lost there. I don't know how you score points in that situation. Like obviously anybody can understand if somebody's getting the snot beaten out of them. But it's a little bit more nuanced, which is to the sports, I think, growing level of interest is that, well, it looks tough. Like they're bare knuckle fighting, getting kicked, unlike boxing, where you have like some padding, a little bit more protection, I guess. So I guess I'm still very, very early in my MMA watching experience. You kind of have a different level of experience and understand that nuance a little bit more.
That's right. And you could have seen the evolution. So I think early on, and I'm just thinking like Brock Lesnar, like you just have the big guys going pow, 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 pounding it in UFC and like killing it, right? And I'm even thinking of Ronda Rousey, like why she was so transcendent for the women's game was, and she was the highest paid UFC player, by the way, is because she was the quick knuckle brawler. Like she just came at you with the 1-2 punch. But what her weakness was the long game. And I feel like Ronda's career is really the trajectory of where we're at with UFC. Is it was difficult for her to get back to her prominence simply because the game moved into the long form, right? Where now you're using up all the minutes, you're using up all the rounds, and you're really trying to tire the player out, right? And so there's much more strategy than I think a lot of people who haven't been watching the sport give it credit for. And so that's why you have these truly full-on athletes that are trained in a multitude of fighting techniques take hold. And I think that's what makes Sean O'Malley, beyond just the personality, which that's what Ronda was so like. These players need to embrace personalities. These fighters need to embrace personalities. But what makes Sean O'Malley so devastating for a lot of people is he fights in multiple ways. And I think so. You think of some of the greatest boxers, they learn the craft of boxing, right? Like they learn that sport. And what's crazy about UFC is, and MMA in general, is you see mixed martial arts, right? It's in the name. It's a mix of different forms of fighting, and you see it in the octagon week in and week out today. So I think for those who maybe didn't watch it because they thought it was too brutal prior, I think it's worth taking a second look, just like with racing, NASCAR, F1. Um, Take a second look. Things have shifted and changed and are worth your attention, especially if you're into some of the technical moves, the technicality. It still can seem brutal, but there's also so much more strategy involved than ever before. And so that's cool to see that evolution in MMA. But we're not huge
Yeah.
fighting pundits, so we're not going to really hit on too much. Just wanting to make sure that you all are aware, which I'm sure you are if you care about it, a big MMA fight this weekend.
Mhm.
Um,
Can I press on that that violence or the brutality point for just
mhm,
a second?
yeah,
I think it's important to like acknowledge the how Americans have already a taste for violent sports and namely football. So the idea of people getting paid to put their bodies in danger and to like physically uh, I know the intention is not the harm in football. And I really don't know if that's like the intention in mixed martial arts as well. The intention is still to win. Of course, either way, either case, somebody's getting paid to put their body in harm's way.
right.
So it's if your argument is it's too violent, too brutal, um, and you still continue to watch NFL football, uh, obviously it's at a different and less intimate like level of combat that happens in football. But I don't know. I feel like if you're willing to turn an eye to one and say that's not violence, that's like okay, and be critical about the other. They
Yeah.
both, to different degrees, obviously, employ the same, you know, getting paid money to put my body on the line uh, kind of mentality.
That's right. I think it's not that big of a leap for a lot of people to respect what people are doing it for. Like it's definitely a lot of free will. No one's forcing anyone to fight. No one's forcing anyone. No one's forcing Mike Tyson, 57, again the ring with Jake Paul. So that's going to be interesting. Hey, just a product alert. We are not sponsored by anyone, by the way. But if Papatui, the new brand, the new men's care brand by Dwayne the Rock Johnson, wants to be one of our sponsors, we're more than happy to continue uh, repping Papatui. But just wanted to give some news out there of the world of being more than your sport. So I just respect the hell out of Dwayne the Rock Johnson. I mean, we're talking about multiple businesses, multiple verticals. I do drink Zoa as an energy drink. Occasionally, I really do enjoy it. It's zero sugar. I feel like it's a wonderful energy drink. I drink the tequila Terramana, and I'm a big tequila drinker, and a lot of different brands. But I like for Terramana for the money. I don't think there's a better tequila to make some mixed drinks or even take shots. So now men's care brand is, I mean, it's very interesting. What do you think, Nick? This is a good market to enter. I feel like it's going to be successful.
Yeah, treat yourself, As a
Treat yourself.
guy, the options in men's care were like bar soaps generally before. And then
Hmm.
we talk about this. We have bad experiences with those. Like they often have like really abrasive qualities, drying
Hmm.
skin out, and makes your skin feel super itchy, actually, for me. Sometimes
Yeah.
I just have like some sort of allergy thing going on that's irregardless of like whatever men's care product. But looks like this line, Habatui, very natural ingredient wise, offers both like a bar soap variety and a body wash and many other things at like a pretty reasonable price point. So I'm excited that he's put his name into the hat for men's care and continuing this uh, kind of line of marketing that I think Old Spice technically started, which is men have skin too, and
Yeah.
take care of
Yeah.
of
That's
that
true.
as like part of your overall health. It's not to be disregarded because skincare
Yeah.
is like seen as something, I don't know, feminine or whatever, what have you.
That's right. No, and we have to get rid of the 2-in-1s and 3-in-1s. There's no quick way to take care of yourself.
No, they can't. you can't take something away and add something at the same time.
You
You can't
know,
condition and shampoo at the same time. It just doesn't
it's
make
not
sense.
possible. Not possible. Not possible. So shout out to Dwayne the Rock. Dewey. So going back to racing, I want to know more. They're qualifying right now. I see George Russell at leading right now on the qualifiers, but that could be because he hasn't raced yet. He's just on the top. There's no race time associated with him. But I do want to talk a little bit about Lando Norris and McLaren. Are they now a force? I mean, Lando Norris seems to be an incredible racer, and was desired, I think, by a lot of these different teams and has stuck with McLaren. During this shuffle where we now see Hamilton moving in 2020, after this year, moving to Ferrari, are we going to see some more movement? Is that the only movement that you know of, or is there more to come?
Well, obviously, Carlos Sainz was displaced in the Hamilton move to Ferrari, and I feel like 100% confident that he'll get a seat in 2025. And he's also been shortlisted for the new Audi team, which is going to start racing in 2026. So I can imagine him signing a stopgap contract for 1 year until he ultimately races for Audi. 14 drivers, I think, in total are out of contract and will be maybe signing contracts with their teams. And Lando Norris, to go back to your original point, is sort of an anomaly here of showing loyalty to McLaren. Obviously, it's the team that he started with, and it's the only team that he's raced for in Formula One. They've put him on podiums last year, so they had a huge development spike in the middle of the season, kind of like
Yeah.
never before seen for a team to go from like bottom of the field to they finished fourth last year. However, we're in such a time of Red Bull dominance that Lando, I think, is playing the long game here with regulation changes in 2026, sticking with the devil So he knows that McLaren have not, at least so far this year, and we're only one race in. Sorry, that was my agent.
Oh my God. Here we go. We're doing it live, folks. We're doing it live. Where we're getting calls in the middle of it, but we gotta shut that down. Sorry for to interrupt your thoughts there, Nate. Please.
All good, all good. Speaking of agents and Lando Norris and his agent, they definitely have decided that they want to place their bets with McLaren, which has huge investment right now from mostly like Bahrain and a lot of Middle Eastern investment. So I think even though in the near future they're not going to be fighting for World Drivers Championships, for Constructors Championships, I think he's thinking your guess is as good as mine in 2026. Excuse me. And so why not stick with the team that's obviously been loyal to me? And I think that 2026 is going to be a great year for Formula One, even though there could be another driver shuffle, maybe not to the extent that's going to happen in 2025. But with the new regulations, it's not a certainty that Red Bull will continue to dominate like they're doing. And I think that parity could be good.
And that's the interesting thing is like there are talented race car drivers who are not in the best vehicles by a long shot, right? Because I think that exists in racing in general, where some technical teams, some pit crew teams are just better than others, and some of the designs are just. But F1 seems to have a gap right now. It's why you get the dominance of Hamilton, the dominance of Ferrari that they had for a while, and now Red Bull's dominance is just leaps and bounds ahead of everyone. It was only just so many years ago where it was Team Mercedes, who seemed to be the untouchables when it came to Formula One. So that's a huge point here, Nick, because I wanted to talk a little bit about this, because in comparison to NASCAR that already has those regulations in place, you do see a lot more parity in NASCAR, where even newer race clubs and teams are able to get on the podium. And there's no real podium. There's no 1, 2, 3. It's just champion, right? Very typical American. There's no second and third place. But uh, does Formula One, do you think that would be good for the sport? Because I also have to admit, as I'm saying this, there's also different times where different teams are doing different things in Formula One. So it's not like it's always been Red Bull, you know?
Mhm.
Like, so it's interesting that there's already like there's even exist without regulation shifts and ebbs and flows just by people hiring a lot of those people, a lot of those talents. So what do you think about these regulations?
Yeah, I think that F1 stands out from NASCAR with that competition of development of cars between teams, and where that's exciting and where there should be some disparity is that if a team obviously has hit the mark so well, such as Red Bull have in the past 3 years, really motivates the other teams to develop more quickly to compete. And so the overall flow of innovation in F1 is a really fast cycle because it needs to be, or else you're going to be left so far in the
Yeah.
dust. Um, but the overall enjoyment of the races for the fans, then more parity is definitely nice to have. I think really is going to be necessary for the longevity of the sport and to ride on this wave of popularity that it's on from the Netflix show. So what they've done in the past few years is change DRS rules, and so what DRS means is drag reduction system. It allows the cars to go faster at certain points of the track, mostly in a straight line, so that they can overtake the competitor in front of them. And that's nice to see more overtakes. Overtakes are exciting, but that's not doing enough, I would argue, because Max Verstappen and Red Bull
Verstappen.
stopping are like 25 seconds, not not in every race, but in a lot of races are like 10 to 20 seconds ahead of the nearest competitor. So no DRS system improvements or rule changes are going to catch up and close that gap. So that's where the regulations come in, kind of artificially create some more parity. But then if they weren't there, I think that you would still see teams developing and getting
It,
close.
it's just this interesting comparison of then who becomes the star, because is Max Verstappen the best, or does he just have the best vehicle? And I know getting into the racing world, there's always a little bit of a balance of both in that regard. But I feel like the skill set, right, doesn't always get to be shown of the takeovers, right? You mentioned how exciting the take that takes skill to be able to time that just right. To think about the funnels, or like the funnels of air that you get under, that you're able to then zoom past the other player, like use that energy. It's incredible, and I feel like when you have a leader that's so ahead of the pack, not seeing that on a consistent basis can just be rough. You know, it's sort of like, I guess everyone should be a fan of Max this year because he's going to do well because he has the best car.
Yeah.
So, and I saw something different here. Now NASCAR, to switch gears here, because now we're becoming a racing podcast here. It's gonna we have to change the SIP score to something like checkered flag. I don't even know but it's
I could
exciting times.
workshop that.
Yeah, we'll workshop that. That was just that was off the cuff. Last weekend, Las Vegas, we had Kyle Larson dominate the race in all stages to win victory. But this in and of itself is not a common thing. We actually saw something completely opposite in Atlanta for NASCAR, where you had almost like Cars, where the Lightning McQueen sticks out his tongue as it, like, literally, I think Daniel Suarez from Team Trackhouse stuck out the tongue to be able to squeeze in that victory. And so I do think it's exciting because you do see more fans all across the board of different race car drivers, because anyone has a chance, right? But I literally heard it on a podcast. Shout out to Decisions Detrimental, Denny Hamlin podcast, where he talks about the Toyota cars in comparison to the Chevy cars, and how even with regulations, there's still a standard, right? But you're trying to fit a square box into a round hole, right? And so that is difficult in the sense of now if you're Toyota, and I think I believe it's either Ford or Chevy is the standard. But if you're Toyota, you're having to fit to a different car standard, but you're a different car altogether. So your strengths and your weaknesses don't get to be explored fully because you're sort of having to be meandering between the regulations of fitting the most modern, up to date car. But that's not necessarily where you might need to advance, but you have to fit within the standards. And so you never top out on every category that you could because you're trying to fit into this standard that's created. So I wonder if some of that same issues those same issues are going to occur in Formula One.
Yeah, I think where the gains are to be made are places that the regulations can be interpreted in different ways, or maybe they haven't regulated thoroughly enough. And so where Red Bull have been super dominant, and a lot of people give credit, and a lot of credit is due to Adrian Newey, their aerodynamicist staff. So a guy who just fully is focused on how the wind hits the vehicle and pushes that vehicle down to the earth so that Verstappen and Perez can take corners more aggressively, have better grip. So Formula One and NASCAR as well. Although I'm not sure about NASCAR being as grippy because they have like a different, like more of a parabolic kind of course. So I don't know if they need to have as much downforce to take those curves. Or in fact, they want to have less downforce so that they would move more quickly. So difference in the technology of the vehicles, as you were mentioning, definitely plays a huge part.
Now, I want to ask you this question because I think it's interesting. I think I know the answer, but I want you to pick the best driver in Formula One and then think about what is the best team in Formula One. And does that driver happen to be in the same team? And so I'm going to do the same thing with NASCAR,
Yeah,
but
we
I
do
want
the
to know
same
your
thing with
thoughts.
NASCAR.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So this is obviously subjective as hell, right? Like my opinion, you can have so many other opinions about who the best driver and who the best team is. I'll start with the team, and I'll start with like a team being its car. Like the team obviously devotes so much money, pours so much effort into the car and its performance, and without a doubt, Red Bull top car right now. And what I understand about the development of the car is that it fits Max Verstappen's driving tendencies really well. In fact, almost too well, because it puts his teammate Sergio Perez a lot of times at a disadvantage. The way that they develop the car fits Max's driving style and is kind of, in some ways, left Sergio high and dry. And so you see Sergio sometimes finishing fifth or worse in the qualifying order, where Max is always finishing on pole. So
he's 6 right now. Sergio's 6. So you're almost literally on the money with your predictions.
Almost called it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick with Team Red Bull for right now, having the most dominant car without question. Who's the best driver on the grid? I will give that to Lewis Hamilton, because and if you watch previous seasons of Drive to Survive, that might be the best sort of document that you can go back to see his dominance and to see that level of driving perfection is what Lewis Hamilton is capable of with the right car under his feet. And this is to say, I'm really excited for 2025, even if the Ferrari car is not the most competitive. I still think that it, combined with Lewis Hamilton, could lead to some race wins and perhaps even a sniff at the Drivers' Championship. So Lewis Hamilton has 7 World Drivers' Championships. He should have 8. That's my hot take. We can touch on that at a different time.
Yeah.
But that's the most, more than anybody else, almost ever. It's tied with Michael Schumacher. But this is definitely the most currently in the field. So I have to give it to Lewis Hamilton, being that's the greatest Formula One driver of all time, in my opinion. So he therefore has to be the greatest on the track right now. Back to
So
you, though, my friend. What would you say about NASCAR?
yeah, so that's interesting. I didn't know you were going to veer off, right? And also have a different driver as a in juxtaposition to a different team, because I have a similar take. And I must say, like, for the NASCAR fans, I must admit I am a novice. I am new to what I see, but I'm a fan. I'm excited to learn more. So if you need to add us or write comments, please do educate us. But from what I saw and what I see from the stats, Kyle Larson might be the best driver in NASCAR right now, right? Just how he dominates. I don't see that. That's not a normal thing. It's not like, oh, that happens in NASCAR, like it happens in Formula One, where Max just runs the. No, no, no. Like that's not normal. That takes absolute execution in all levels of the race to be able to perform the way Kyle Larson performed. And more importantly, because there are so many takeovers in NASCAR, it also takes strategy on the defensive end. So throughout the race in Vegas, you just saw Kyle Larson like block, 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 like just move across the track to block the player. In this case, it was mostly Tyler Reddick, for 2311 race team, trying to come back, and you just couldn't push through. He couldn't. You even had at one point Bubba Wallace from their same team as Tyler Reddick, bump, little shake and bake. You guys got to see some shake and bake action. Shout out to Talladega Nights, to try to push him in advance, and it just wasn't enough. It got close. It was like a tenth of a second was the closest that Tyler got to that, to potentially getting victory lane. But Kyle Larson, I think he's the best driver in NASCAR right now. And I if there's another thought, and I know Denny Hamlin, like the one of the greatest ever, still hasn't won a NASCAR Series championship. I hope it happens for Denny this year. I really do. Just so that you could put like a cherry on top to a legendary career. But Kyle Larson's going to be coming for it, and so watch out. As far as team, and now this is subjective as hell, right? This is subjective as hell on the team. It's Team Trackhouse. So you had Daniel Suarez win already, get in victory lane in Atlanta. But Ross Chastain is one of the more popular drivers in NASCAR. What makes him so popular is he's like a ninth generation watermelon farmer. So he connects to blue collar NASCAR fans like no one else, and they call him the Watermelon Man. So you have that end of a very rural upbringing who could just race to hell out of anybody, right? And compete. Great personality. Feels more comfortable talking to people than talking to like his fans than talking to the NASCAR people. But then you have Daniel Suarez of Mexican descent, who brings this whole new group of fans and excitement to the racetrack, and that rallies around this sort of Day of the Dead theme. So a lot of his stuff has skulls, like Day of the Dead, which is just beautiful imagery, just badass imagery. So you got the watermelon with the skulls, and it's just it. I think it is primed to take over Team Penske. All the other race teams in popularity. It just feels like they're the new. Almost, I think what Aston Martin on the Formula One side is trying to do with being one of the newcomers is trying to be pop. But I feel like with the two drivers of Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain, I love Team Trackhouse. I love what they got going on. It's an organization that's investing in itself, investing in North Carolina, by the way. So Team Trackhouse is the best, and I think they're going to get a lot of victories. They're going to get a lot of victories.
I love that pick. What a
Hmm.
wonderful management group as well. Obviously, Pitbull, the
Mr.
Mr.
Worldwide, Mr. Worldwide.
he, yeah, what he touches turns to gold, Grammy gold, or in this
Mm.
case, racing gold. I don't know if they give out gold at the end of a NASCAR race, but
There's
if
also
they did, Pitbull would be
strange
all over them.
trophies. One of them's a granddaddy clock.
Interesting.
Forgot what racetrack is the granddaddy clock. But there's a lot of racing, a lot of excitement, but it's we're gonna work up an appetite here, right? We're gonna work up an appetite for watching these races, for thinking about these races. They're both in very, very different locations. Surprisingly, both arid though, right? They're
Both deserts, yeah.
both deserts. So there is a connection. So we thought it'd be fun, and we're gonna do this all season. We're gonna talk about the culinary sort of plates and dishes of each region for the races and talk about some of our favorites or something that we're excited about. So, Nick, I'm going to let you go first with the Saudi Arabia race,
Absolutely.
and
So
I could pull it up here if you want.
I just have a food tour of Saudi Arabia up, and I think that what is telling to me is, as an American, this race is taking part in some very, very far away place in the world. However, a lot of these dishes that I'm seeing here feel familiar. Um, you've got hummus, waffle, um, different sort of like kind of like baklava, but like a different variation on something with like phyllo dough, samosas. So basically, like pockets of dough filled with meat or some such, fried to perfection. Um, so just a lot of really like all-time great foods that you could enjoy in Saudi Arabia. And this is, not divorced from what they are probably having at the track as well, where if you're in like one of the paddock hospitality areas, you're enjoying, I would guess, probably some caviar, probably some champagne right now. So
Mm.
um, really spoiled for choice in terms of Saudi Arabian foods. Um, and
I'll tell you
actually,
what, Nick, what catches my eye here is Rus
mhm,
al Bukhari. Rus al Bukhari. It's chicken and rice. It reminds me of my Puerto Rican roots here. But of course, it has dates and chilies, and it has a lemon on the side. But it looks pretty appetizing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just want to call out that dish as well because that looks like it's crazy, right? How different foods are still the same foods, just like slight variations on them.
you have some different ingredients like the dates.
Mm-hmm.
This is a date producing part of the world. And that little sweet with the spicy and the salty, that's ticking all the boxes for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
got to be really excited about what you're eating there. And I appreciate what Formula One did with the past two races to explain why they're racing on Saturday in Saudi Arabia and they raced on Saturday in Bahrain is because Ramadan. So the like fasting that one does during Ramadan starts on Sunday. So they move the race up to Saturday. So I feel like it's like a feast for people. It's, I don't know,
That's true.
give them a chance to enjoy the race and the festivities.
That's true. That's great. And I think culturally, I know the NFL and other sports want to go further and further abroad. I think those nuances are so important to just embrace. NASCAR has been toying with the idea of more races in Mexico, and I think that would be a great idea. I love international expansion of sports. I think it's necessary. But there's a lot of delicious dishes, and some of it has become very staples of our American food. You mentioned falafel and hummus. I feel like those two dishes alone are very fundamental for a lot of people as far as like eating it either once a week, once a month. Like you get yourself a hummus, hummus and chips. It's a great
Mhm.
snack. So of course, there's multiple cultures that own hummus and own falafel in their own way. And I'm sure there's unique nuances. But then we have Phoenix. And I'm surprised. I used eater.com, the website, to look at, I guess, top dishes in the restaurant scene in Phoenix. But I'm a little shocked, and I don't know if we'll get into this conversation, but it took me a while to hit like a Mexican spot. And so I found that interesting because they do call Phoenix like the biggest American suburb. Like it's a lot of development. It's a lot of people have moved there. You know, you have Scottsdale, you have Mesa, you have Tempe, all Glendale, like literally just all there. You know, it really surrounding Phoenix. So it's a booming city that has gotten a lot of influx from all over our country. And so I wonder if that has shifted some of the top eater destinations because they're like macaroons, clam chowder. Like, is there even a beach in Phoenix? Why would clam chowder make the mix? I was expecting to see more Mexican spots, and of course, I will give a shout out to legendary Sonora dogs. They're the sort of Mexican version of hot dogs. But I don't know if we want to get into that. Why aren't there more Mexican dishes on the like? It's like looking at the same website in Saudi Arabia. We're not going to see all this influx of like lobster roll. There's lobster rolls we're on here, Nick, for the of all that is holy.
Yeah,
Lobster rolls.
I feel like you said it really well when you talked about how so many different people from all over the country are moving there. There's lots of like tech industry and stuff
Mm-hmm.
around Phoenix, so they bring with them their tastes. And I think Eater always
Uh-oh.
shows
Here we
preference
go.
for the like
Here we go.
not stuck up places. That's not the right, but a little bit more
Yeah, say it from your
mid-range
chest, Nick.
like
No, say it. He said it.
restaurants.
We heard it. We heard it here.
There's got to be like fire Mexican food in Phoenix because I know for a fact New Mexico, the neighboring state, has the best. I won't call it Mexican. I'll call it New Mexican cuisine. It's really central to like the chiles that they grow, and that's a huge part of the cuisine. So the ingredients are all there. Obviously, the proximity to Mexico is as close as it gets in the United States. So uh, that's just given. So I don't know. Eater is great, like for me and my fiance were going to travel to a new place for the first time. They kind of do cater to like travelers, people who are just trying to place out the first time. They don't have to do something like super unfamiliar to them, not branching out super far from what they're familiar with. So
Yeah.
and Phoenix would be great place to take a trip to.
Yeah. So it kind of in that theme. Fire Mexican food in Phoenix. Okay, you just got to you might have to ask some more locals as opposed to
Yeah.
just going to eater.com for a full list of the fire Mexican food. But another spot exists in Phoenix that Nicholas has told me about. That apparently in New Yorkers don't at me, okay? This is Nicholas has told me this. I am not agreeing with this necessarily, but that one of the best pizza places in the world. I think this was said in a Netflix documentary, by the way, it's confirmed. So it's not just Nicholas's opinion because he hasn't even been there.
I haven't been
So
there.
he hasn't been there. So I don't know. Like I don't know if this is a hill he's gonna die on, like willing to die on.
If
But
anybody
that
wants to pay for me to go and
we
taste it for
can
myself,
we can
I'm
go.
taking donations.
Pizzeria Bianco is apparently a phenomenal pizza place that exists in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, I believe it's been there for decades. So it's definitely crafted its trade. Well, I lost it. I lost the
Can you hear me
headphone.
now? Can you
Yeah,
hear
yeah,
me
I hear
now?
you. I hear you.
Good.
I hear you. But when we talked about this the other day, folks, uh, we of course we had to look if Dave Portnoy had done a review, the Pizza King himself. Shout out to Dave Portnoy for what he does for pizza businesses. He actually reviewed a pizza place not too far from me. I live in Pembroke Pines, John the Baker. And I will say, spoiler alert, folks, spoiler alert, he gave this Pembroke Pines place, which was like I think a 7.6 or 7.8, a higher score than he gave Pizzeria Bianco. Reactions. I held Nick back from telling me reactions yesterday because I wanted to hear him fresh today.
Right. So I don't know if you had it pulled up to play a bit from it, but we could just like summarize and say 7.3 was the score that Dave gave Pizzeria Bianco. And like I said, I've never been, and I get where Dave is coming from in terms of Neapolitan style pizza not being his favorite. I agree with him in that regard. And I also want to just like before I destroy him here, I want to give a little bit of additional credit for like the fact that he's giving pizza knowledge to the masses. The things that he says in his review, like the box kills the pizza in its crispiness, is so true. And if you can just get the chance to sit down at a pizza restaurant and eat the pizza there, you're gonna have such much better experience. And he obviously evaluates pizza in a way that I agree with. Like the crust is important, and that it's not flopping around everywhere is crucial to me as well. But he had and okay, so end of the Dave flattering. Obviously, he doesn't need any flattering. I'm going to kind of take him to task a little bit on his Pizzeria Bianco, just as like somebody, I watched the Netflix limited series Chef's Table Pizza, so I learned a bit about Chris Bianco's story. He's come from New York and decided to do things in a very sustainable and artisanal and I think passionate way that it's really when you try pizza there, it seems like you're in the presence of like greatness and somebody who really cares about the craft. And whenever the score is as low as it was, I just feel like you have to fudge points a little bit when you're tasting something as great as that is in terms of the quality, the craftsmanship, and the freshness of the ingredients. And if you want to bring fantastic pizza to the masses, Dave does that. I think people do take his reviews seriously. And it's not like Chris Bianco needs Dave's help to fill the place. Like lines, incredibly long lines all the time. So this won't change the success of Pizzeria Bianco. I'm not worried about it business-wise. But I just feel like in the presence of such greatness, I think 8. Dave, if you're listening, you need to like start at 8s whenever you're talking about one of the like premier pizza places in the country. And I'm not saying like we have to have like icons of pizza. I'm not a proponent of like holding people up on this huge pedestal, but I feel like it was misleading. Just because he's not a Neapolitan guy doesn't mean you have to like start your review. That's an arbitrary 6.8, which is what he starts all Neapolitan pizzas at. Gotta show some love for the original, the Pizzeria Bianco.
Yeah, I respect Nick, Nick, a lot, but I am going to respectfully then disagree. I think sometimes like, and we're both foodies, and I know we have both eaten at Michelin-starred, James Beard award-winning restaurants, but sometimes it can feel like the hype takes away from the whole joy of it, right? So like someone gets this hype, and maybe he's been doing it for years, but there's other chefs like this all around the world who've been doing things for you, and it's sort of like, yeah, but like my grandma's cooking just tastes a little bit better, right? Like something just made with a lot of love and less on the frou-frou side can taste a lot better. And so I do think sometimes folks get addicted to the hype of places. Like I remember he did a similar take on a review in Brooklyn. And by the way, this review's a year old, so we're coming in to the super late. So to your point, Nick, Pizzeria Bianco's doing just fine a year later. Still line out the door, but I feel like humans, we get this thing in our head where it's like, I need to wait in a line because other people are waiting in a line. And yes, they think it's the best, so I think it's the best. this got an award. So yes, it is the best. I am the best because I am eating the best and I need the best. And it takes away from so many chinchorritos, little places that you don't even know. Like it's the most unassuming places in the world that can just burn, like put out some of the best pizza you've ever tasted in your life. But they'll never get recognized. They'll never have a documentary come in there. Like Dave Portnoy is the closest thing that a lot of those places have of getting recognized. And really, they're just serving their community, and they do it with love. They do it with care. Not to say that it's not happening in Pizzeria Bianco, but to say that I think some places just get overhyped, and I don't understand why. I've eaten at places that are like this, and I'm like, I'm gonna say I enjoy a meal, a burger and fries, more than this whole $500 10 serving court. And what does that say about the food world, right? Where it's like it's just the exclusivity of it sometimes that I think people taste and get more joy out of than the actual product itself. And so I think, and knowing that Pizzeria Bianco is going to be just fine is important, because I don't like places like that shouldn't cease to exist. And I don't think any of his scores have really diminished any. But I mean, my little Pembroke Pines place got 7.6, and there's that's a pretty busy place. No lines out the door, but that's a pretty, like, I think just the fact that Dave Portnoy rated a pizza over there, people are like, this is the best pizza we have. It's been rated. So I don't know. I love it. I love it because for me, it feels a little anti-establishment, right? Like, and I know you're Mr. Man City, but break the damn establishment, Nick. Let's break it all together. What is good food? And maybe I'm getting here too ratatouille on you, but you know, anyone can cook. And I think anyone can have a better pizza than Pizzeria Bianco. Anyone, you know, can have documentaries. Like, there's just amazing food being put out there. And sometimes you got to call a spade, because I will say that I think, to be fair, and we're not going to show the video because we don't want to get cut for copyright infringement. I don't even know if that would count because we're showing the video itself, so we're giving proper credit. But I think I will say, I think Dave Portnoy, if the first pizza pie he got stayed consistent throughout the pie and there wasn't any flop, I think it would have been your 8.0 or more.
Yeah.
I think he dropped it immediately as soon as he saw the flop. As soon as he saw the flop on the second and third slices, I think that's where it went kaputs for Pizzeria Bianco. So I have a feeling that if it would have stayed crispy, he would have been so impressed it would have been an 8. Because then he's like, he's never seen a margarita pizza like that, you know, that could stay not floppy. So,
and you should call his reviews several bites, because
oh my God,
on his
is
first
it still
bite,
one bite?
it was a 10.
Is it still one? I will call you all out on that, Dave. Like, stop saying one bite. Everyone knows the rules, because that bro, it takes definitely more than one bite. And you know, it's weirdly enjoyable. I don't know why I enjoy watching those videos.
Yeah.
I love those videos so much. It's just, oh man. But we don't always have to agree, and we don't always have to you know, I think our taste buds are individualistic anyway. What's delicious to me may not be delicious to you. And so everyone has to take the grain of salt with food reviews as a whole, including the awards, right? Including who gets rated this sort of elevated status. That's subjective.
I agree. I love where you're coming from. You pick food, you out there, you all pick food that you know that you like. Take your recommendations from people you like, know, and trust. You don't need to just go on to pizza reviews, Eater, and go to everything that you see there. I think that if you're traveling someplace and you just stick to like the neighborhood that you're like staying in for, I don't know, just a couple of days, you'll feel more like connected to the community, and you will have great food. You won't wait in line for hours. You'll get to enjoy whatever other things you want to do in the city. I know that there's like destinations that you want to go and dine at, and that's great. Depending on the city, If you just like stick into your like community, you'll feel like a local.
I love that. I love that. That's great advice, everybody. Nick, he travels. He travels, everybody. He travels. By the way, we do have an announcement I just want to share. I'm going to share my screen here. You can tell I host a lot of Zoom meetings because I describe what I'm doing
Do you
as
see
I'm
my
about
screen?
to
Okay,
do.
thanks.
Do you see my screen? Everybody, give me the thumbs up. Give me the thumbs up, everybody. Okay, I get thumbs up. We're on X, everybody. We're on X. You can follow us at StipScoreSaver. So please add us. Please add us. Engage with us. Share different things in sports. We got to add some updates here. Of course, we're going to share this episode here on our X channel. But yeah, feel free to follow us and engage with us here. Anything you want to add there, Nick?
Yeah, let us know who you think best driver team pairing in F1 NASCAR, and if they are not the same driver and same team, I'd love to know why. There may be a lot to put in 200 characters.
Can I here?
We're doing it live, folks. We're doing it live. We'll have
Yeah.
for you so that you can weigh in.
I got to add all the choices. That's going to take a long time.
Well, maybe we gotta leave it here then, my friend.
Yeah,
you gotta look out for this poll, folks.
You'll check it out. You'll check it out, folks. I'm gonna put it up. We'll put 4 options there in Formula One, and then I'll do the same thing for NASCAR. All right,
well,
signing off here, Nick.
Thanks, folks. Enjoy the racing this weekend. Take care, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Wait, what's that guy's name? The new driver for Ferrari, Bearman.
Ollie Bearman.
Ollie Bear. Ollie Bear. Ollie Bear. All right, cheers.